If you thought the last 2 years blessed us with too much Marvel content, then you've got another thing coming, because boy do they have content lined up for you this year. If you're dying to find out all about it, then you've come to the right spot. True believers, assemble. We're about to unmask some of the newest additions to the MCU. First up, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Doctor Strange with his mandalas and his interdimensional portals. But what calamity has our Sorcerer Supreme transported himself into this time? Well, to indirectly quote the movie's trailer, we know very little about the multiverse, except for what the official synopsis has to say about it. What might that be, you ask? Well, to begin with, the blurb hints at the presence of old and new, quote, mystical allies, who, from what we know, will aid Steven on his odyssey into the mind-bending and dangerous alternate timelines that populate the multiverse. Secondly, and as if Strange didn't have enough on his plate already, it teases the arrival of a new adversary. While fans have reason to believe, the reasons being the final episode of Loki, this new villain might not be Kang the Conqueror. As for why, it's because he's got bigger fish to fry in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, while we can't be too sure about which one of his enemies he'll be taking on this time around, we thankfully have a handle on his aides. Firstly, there's his trusted friend Wong, who, if you're a diehard fan of the movies, doesn't need an introduction. Second of all, we've got the MCU's other beloved magician, Wanda. And before we can proceed to the third member of this magical alliance, let's quickly establish that she might turn out to be the villain, according to some fan theories floating around these days. Okay, since we've got that out of the way, it's time for us to introduce America Chavez. No, she's not one of those teen influencers. As a matter of fact, she's the newest addition to Marvel's ever-growing list of live-action adaptations and Strange's third ally. As far as her powers are concerned, she can jump between dimensions. So yes, she's pretty relevant to Steve's newest ordeal. All in all, Chavez's introduction, combined with the trailer's nods at the Charles Xavier tie-in/return, will be a treat to behold, guaranteed. Luckily, that day isn't far because the film's coming out in the first week of May. Excited? Oh man, wait till you hear about the next two projects. Next is Ms. Marvel. America Chavez of the Young Avengers isn't the only young blood coming into the MCU this year. Come June 8th, Kamala Khan, a brown girl from Jersey City, will also be seen saving the world on Disney+. Speaking of the Young Avengers, the events of the show might coincide with their assembly and take place in the present times, but this doesn't mean that the veterans will be completely missing from the timeline. In fact, Amin Vellani, who plays Khan, might appear in the Captain Marvel sequel sometime in the near future. Or alternatively, Captain Marvel might put in a show on the Disney Plus series as a mentor, seeing that she's Kamala's heroine and the inspiration behind her name and costume as well. Yes, you heard that right. Contrary to popular belief, Ms. Marvel isn't some sort of replacement for Carol Danvers. Matter of fact is, Danvers is still Captain Marvel and only the inspiration behind Kamala's persona. Although we've already mentioned where you can catch the MCU's first Muslim superhero in action, let's remind you that it'll only have 6 episodes in a fashion similar to most of Marvel's TV shows. But fret not, because they've got you covered with a bunch of other things that you can enjoy while Kamala prepares for another round of action. Next up, we have Thor: Love and Thunder. Soon after the release of Ms. Marvel in June, fans will be reunited with their favorite MCU himbo, Thor Odinson, in July. Or will they? Because from the looks of the trailer, we might be getting another Thor. Deep breaths, we're getting into the details. Right off the bat, in this film, Thor's superheroing days, as he puts it in the trailer, are long behind him. We literally see him retreating from a battle when normally he's the first one to charge into it. So what exactly will he be doing for the course of the film? Well, plain and simple, he'll be discovering himself, and since the events of the movie take place after Endgame, shedding some of that pesky belly fat. The trailer makes that pretty clear. However, there is some stuff that it doesn't care to explain at all. First things first, how will the Olympians fit into this scheme of things? Yes, the Olympians. In case you missed it, we not only got a look at Zeus in the trailer, but also a momentary glance at Olympus. For now, fans believe that the two thunder gods will be pitted against each other. But again, these are only theories, and we're talking about a Taika Waititi movie here. Besides Olympus, the trailer also alluded to New Asgard becoming a bit of a tourist attraction. And while we were in New Asgard, we got to meet an old fan favorite, King Valkyrie, who, if you know anything about her, looked exasperated at being away from the battlefield and dealing with delegations. Speaking of fan favorites, and coming to the biggest shocker of the trailer yet, Jane Foster has returned, not as the love interest, but as Thor herself. Why, you inquire? Well, all we know is that this is what happens in the comic, or even if they're not staying loyal to the comics, it might be a consequence of Strange's multiverse shenanigans. Anywho, and even though we don't know about you, this was one of our favorite Marvel trailers to come out this year. That Guns N' Roses Sweet Child of Mine touch was hella, if you know what we mean, electrifying. Now that we've satisfied your thirst for news concerning the upcoming films, let's quickly walk you through some of the related happenings as well. Now we have news and rumors. Up next, Doctor Strange might not be coming to China. Doctor Strange's run of bad luck seems to have seeped out of the script as well. Briefly, the film has run into problems with the Chinese authorities over a particular sequence in the trailer. To be exact, it's the one featuring the Epoch Times in the backdrop, a newspaper, for those of you you who don't know, largely known for its criticism of the Chinese Communist Party. However, this isn't the first time that a Marvel movie has come under fire from the Chinese government. As a matter of fact, Black Widow didn't sit well with them either because of its commentary on communism. All things considered, if it does get the green signal from the officials, The Multiverse of Madness will be the first MCU film to come out in China since Endgame in 2019. That our fellow true believers from China get to savor this masterpiece. Speaking of masterpieces, a superhero disaster piece from our childhood might not be getting a new lease on life after all. Next, Jon Watt backs out of the Fantastic Four reboot. Although Disney has managed to keep almost everything about the Fantastic Four reboot tightly under the wraps, fans were delighted to find out that the Spider-Man director, Jon Watt, was involved with the project. However, to their dismay, he's recently stepped down from the role to work on more original scripts, apparently one involving Brad Pitt and George Clooney for Apple TV. Nevertheless, this isn't the end of his run with the MCU. Contrarily, Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige has expressed the hope of bringing him back for future projects. To quote, "We are optimistic that we will have the opportunity to work together again at some point down the road. We hope his words ring true in the future because there's no denying that Watts breathed a new life into Spider-Man fandom and films. But not all of Marvel's associates enjoy the fans' favors. There are some that the fans can't seem to stand." Next up, James Gunn comes to Chris Pratt's defense. Chris Pratt isn't everybody's cup of tea, and given some of his antics, it's not hard to understand why, but the Guardians director thinks otherwise. To elaborate, James Gunn recently shut a fan down for suggesting that Pratt be replaced with Patrick Wilson. This suggestion didn't stem as much from the two's uncanny resemblance than it did from Pratt's continued questionable behavior. In case you've been living under a rock, we're referring to Chris's association with a blatantly homophobic church. But believe it or not, James labeled the whole thing as a hoax in his quote tweets. Simply put, he clapped back that the news of Pratt's attendance at the church was nothing but a part of people's made-up, utterly false beliefs about him. To boot, he made it very clear that if Pratt were to receive the boot, everybody else involved with the Guardians franchise would go down with him. Talk about galactic solidarity. Anywho, we hope that Pratt comes out and clarifies his stance once again, because it reflects really badly on an actor who's famous for playing a canon bisexual character. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Which lesser-known Marvel character's live-action debut are you looking forward to? Have you read the comic books for these upcoming movies? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. See you in the next one!